Therefore the fruitions are inconceivable. May they be born in a completely pure realm.
We'll have 5 minutes of silent meditation starting now. Okay. Let's sit up first and one of this seat's our teacher, Khen, is here. So look busy. Where did we move on? Chapter, do you remember? What verse of chapter? Chapter 7 of Santideva.
Chapter 7, I have 30. I have
30 or so, yeah.
34. I have 34.
You might be right. You're probably right.
Tearing limbs.
Sorry?
I think it was the tearing limbs off. Or
Tearing limbs.
Yeah.
Tearing limbs.
The true surgeons will hear, in other words.
Where is that?
Yeah, you shrink your arms and limbs before you're ready to.
Verse 34.
Chapter 7.
Chapter 7, Enthusiasm or Virya Paramita. So 34, yeah?
So I remember 20 as well.
20.
Tearing limbs. Yeah.
26.
And the frightening thing, I may have to give away my arms and legs.
Yes.
So we've gone through this already. It's saying, verse 21, over countless myriads of eons have been cut, stabbed, burned, and flayed alive in innumerable times have not yet awakened. Yet the suffering involved, in that verse 22 goes with it, in my awakening will have a limit. It's like the suffering of having an incision made in order to remove and destroy greater pain. Otherwise, you've already suffered a lot and you got nowhere. The work for the Dharma, you don't suffer that much and you get a tremendous reward. So we need commentary. Despite the intense suffering, as the Sarah text was, no meaning or benefit was derived from these existences. We're still here, we're not enlightened. The suffering was senseless and our lives were completely wasted. But the problems that arise in our pursuit of Dharma are very different. Buddha is known as the supreme physician because he can cure the chronic disease of the mind. He requires no other medicine than renunciation, bodhichitta, and the wisdom realizing emptiness to treat ailments that continuously affect all sentient beings. These diseases, unlike cured by ordinary doctors, will never occur again. So the point is what? Not only Duchess Fresca. It's a total cure that's never been.
So this goes into the difficulties that we have to endure in our pursuit of enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. So again, as I said the last time, this is a practice for someone who has generated bodhicitta. This is a practice for maintaining and increasing our enthusiasm for accomplishing this goal. And one of the so we brace ourselves for the challenges that we're going to have to put up with. And it's not that we immediately offer our bodies If we are engaging in difficult and painful things to help others, all right, what I'm trying to say is that the suffering that we experience as a result of having engaged in negative activities is a real suffering that we merit due to our own past actions. That suffering is something that we are going to engage in as long as we engage in non-virtue. Once we have generated bodhicitta, once we have determined that we're devoting ourselves to others, then the difficulties that we encounter along the way, the challenges that we put up with, and the willingness that we are meant to have to assume that kind of difficulty will not hurt us, because we don't deserve to suffer. These are difficulties that we are taking on in order to help others. If we don't deserve to suffer, we won't suffer. The wonderful thing about the laws of cause and effect is that unless we merit to suffer, we won't suffer. So that when a bodhisattva plunges into the hell realms to help sentient beings, gives his or her body to help some hungry tigress, as the Buddha did, none of that causes that particular high bodhisattva the least bit of suffering, because he doesn't have the karma to suffer, and he's engaging in it, on the contrary, with this spirit of enlightenment and this generosity, this pure generosity. So now, what I'm saying is that as we try to cultivate perseverance, as we try to cultivate joyous effort, if we sit in our meditation and we say to ourselves, oh, I can't attain enlightenment, it's going to be so tough, I can't give away my body, I can't do that. We have to use the analytical, the reasonings that I just mentioned, as a way of saying to ourselves, no, I've got to do this. I'm not going to suffer unless I deserve to. This is the kind of thing that we cultivate within ourselves as to develop this force, the force to persevere. The goal that we're aiming towards is Buddhahood. So it's the force to attain Buddhahood. And this perseverance that we are, I'm sorry, I use the word perseverance.
Yeah, whatever. Some use perseverance. It's a different word in every text.
This perseverance, this joyous perseverance that we have to cultivate, is something not just for right now. This perseverance is something that, the interesting thing about such virtuous attitudes is that they grow, they develop. The more we engage in them, the easier it is. They are a wonderful sort of positive, vicious circle, or sort of snowball. And that's very important, because we need this perseverance through to the attainment of enlightenment. This is a quality that has to grow and that has to propel us from life to life, so that we can continue to accumulate the virtue and the wisdom necessary to attain enlightenment.
Even doctors eliminate illnesses, unpleasant medical treatments. So in order to overcome manifold sufferings, this is verse 23, I should be able to put up with some discomfort. Yet, verse 24, doesn't that go with what Nikki just said? Ken said, yet the Supreme Physician does not employ common medical treatments such as these. With an extremely gentle technique, he remedies all the greatest ills. And at the beginning, verse 25, you start small. At the beginning, the guide of the world encourages the giving of such things as food. Later, when accustomed to this, one may progressively start to give away even one's flesh. And at such a time, 26, when my mind is developed to the point of regarding my body like food, then what hardship would there be when it came to giving away my flesh? And the answer is 27, this verse 27 more or less gives you the justification of that sentence. So those other words, having forsaken all transgressions, there will be no suffering. And due to wisdom, there will be no lack of joy. But now my mind is afflicted by mistaken conceptions and my body is caused harm by unwholesome deeds. So that's our situation now, but it won't be as we progress and make more merit and get rid of more latent causes for suffering.
As part of the path, though, we have to sort of purify in terms of our past actions. So part of that meeting the suffering is sort of letting that happen, right? Letting that process of purification happen.
Well, purification is not a process that just sort of happens like that. Purification is, we have to recognize our non-virtues. We have to regret them. We have to determine to engage in the countermeasures to keep them from happening again. And we do that within the context of, as a Bodhisattva, refuge in the Buddha and our determination to become a Buddha.
What I mean is, in so doing, it's sort of, in my own experience, I feel it as something that's sort of uncomfortable when I do those practices, but then I also feel better afterwards. So there's a step that I have to take of meeting that suffering.
Well,
which is how I interpreted what was being said here.
If you're acknowledging your own improprieties honestly, it is uncomfortable, yes.
Yeah.
That's how you know you're really doing it.
Question about the Bodhisattva practice for purification. Is that do you need an empowerment to do the mantra and that practice the way that it's written?
I think that it's sort of open enough so that you can engage in it. Have you received any? Sorry?
No.
No. Okay.
Went to Ladakh, did you get an initiation there?
Not for that.
No, but for something else? Did you go to a Kalachakra initiation?
No.
You went to some initiation though in Ladakh, right? Something.
Yeah, I mean, just with this holiness bodhisattva stuff and refuge, but not an initiation like tantric. No.
So I don't think that.
Medicine book.
Yeah.
So I don't think that the repetition of that mantra, when we, at our level, when we recite a mantra of purification, the recitation of the mantra is not the element that purifies us. It's the thought process that accompanies it, which should be just what we're talking about, which should be really recognizing the non-virtues, the sort of habitual self-centeredness that we lead our lives by, and developing through regret and a determination to work against those things. So that's what you do when you're reciting Bodhisattva. And then later, if you receive instruction on a visualization of purifying to accompany that, then you do that too.
Okay.
Can we give ourselves in the beginning Bodhisattva vows? I mean, when we read a text such as this.
Have you received any kind of Bodhisattva vow?
I'm not speaking personally, in general. Can one read this text and not have been to any kind of ceremony or teaching and consider oneself to have made the Bodhisattva vow?
On some level, all right, there may be some initial power to receiving the Bodhisattva vows from a Bodhisattva or a Buddha. However, what's most important is that in respect to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, our teachers, or before them, we determine that we make a vow to work towards the attainment of enlightenment. That's what it is. And if in the future we have the good fortune to receive them from someone, wonderful. But so there are two types of bodhisattva. There's the aspirational and the engaging. And the aspiration is, I want to become a Buddha in order to help all sentient beings. I'm going to become a Buddha in order. Well, the vow sort of is what determines that we're actually doing it. We are engaged. That vow is what is the difference between the aspirational and the engaging.
And engaging in the 6 perfections, right?
Engaging in the work that leads to the attainment of Buddhahood in order to help all sentient beings. So engaging in the actions necessary, and they are sort of spelled out as 6 perfections, but engaging in what leads to Buddhahood.
Their bodies are happy due to their merits, their minds are happy due to their wisdom. Even if they remain in cyclic existence for the sake of others, why would the compassionate ones ever be upset? So as again we said, they're not upset because they've cleared the causes for suffering and they have wisdom. So due to the strength, 29, of the awakening mind, the Bodhisattva consume their previous transgressions and harvest oceans of merit. Hence they are said to excel the Shravakas. Maybe you could explain what Shravakas are. Does people know what Shravakas are?
Listeners.
What?
Listeners.
What?
Listeners.
So,
People. I'm sorry.
go ahead.
No, you're talking.
No.
It's people who try to reach a state of nirvana themselves. And they don't have the Mahayana aspiration.
What is the difference between them and solitary realizers?
A solitary is reached a higher level, but it's still just it's without I'm not sure. Yeah, but yes, it is.
That worries us.
So there are these two types. To seek freedom from cyclic existence, to work towards the abandonment of our afflictions, which takes us to a state of freedom from suffering. The afflictions, our actions, our afflictive activity is, affliction means something that causes us to suffer. So when we stop the causes of suffering, we don't suffer. So there is one goal, which is this solitary realizer goal, and there's a goal which is a hearer goal, and as you said, there is a slight difference. However, both of these are working towards merely extricating oneself from suffering, countering our engagement in the afflictions that cause us to be suffering within cyclic existence.
Do hearers correspond with lower scope intentions?
No. So, all right, if we talk about 3 scopes, we talk about the people who are engaging in a practice that brings them to a better rebirth. So they're not working simply for the pleasures of this life, they're working towards a better rebirth. The medium scope being recognizes that even in a better rebirth, you're stuck in cyclic existence, and so they work towards the attainment of freedom from cyclic existence, which is freedom from being a victim of their afflictive emotions. So solitary realizers and hearers are medium scope practitioners.
What is the difference between them? Exactly.
I don't know.
It's not important. It's not for this class.
Yeah, that's the Mahayana.
Especially with this text. We're trying to go within Mahayana aspiration.
Yes,
But these are shared paths.
to a point they're shared. They're not, they have to-
No, so there are sort of, let's say, situations of freedom from seeking existence that differ between what a solitary realizer attains and the method at the end of the way he attains it. At the very, very end, in his practice, by the mere name solitary realizer, the way he attains that final freedom from the effects of his or her afflictive emotions, that differs from the hearers. When you say shared practice, yes. The fact is that whether you are working towards becoming a solitary realizer, whether you're working towards becoming a hearer, whether you're working towards becoming a Buddha, what you have to do is come to realize your own emptiness of inherent existence. So that the meditation that you're engaging in that leads to either of those three is one of meditating on emptiness. What differs between the two lower ones and the higher one is the motivation. That difference in motivation is enormous. That allows the Bodhisattva, the one who's aspiring to become a Buddha, to remove not just the afflictions, but any kind of sort of predisposition to afflictions that enables the Buddha, the resultant Buddha, to possess not just freedom from his afflictions, but a quality of omniscience by which he can benefit others. It is the omniscient mind of a Buddha that knows just how to help others along their paths.
But that, why don't you go on? Go ahead.
We'll have more questions as we proceed. Someone else? Having mounted the horse.
15 people.
What?
Never mind, this is my own thing. If everyone gave 10 minutes of questioning, we wouldn't finish today.
That's okay. There's solve problems in everybody. Long, many lives to finish. So having mounted the horse of an awakening mind, or a Lamborghini of the way, whatever they have, that dispels all discouragement and weariness, who, when they know of this mind that proceeds from joy to joy, whatever lapse into despondency. The theme of this chapter is not to be despondent, not to be lazy. So here's another reason brought to bear. The supports when working for the sake of living beings are, we did this, the four powers: aspiration, steadfastness, joy, and rest. And now we start the aspiration part with verse 31. It starts to introduce aspiration developed through fear of misery and by contemplating the benefits of aspiration itself. Aspiration, we talked about before, or power of conviction, sometimes talked about. Developing a clear conviction that the result of your effort exists and it is achievable. In other words, you know that it's doable. How? By reasoning, thinking over. Once you know it's doable, you have more of a impetus to do it. This includes the conviction that you could achieve the resultant state of full enlightenment. Such conviction is powerful in giving rise to joyous effort. Another word for enthusiasm, another word for... You're using joyous effort now, right? Joyous perseverance. So That's aspirations. The force powers start with verse 31, which is the definition of aspiration.
So, can I say something?
Yes, please. I should stop talking.
So, contemplation of the laws of cause and effect. When you're saying apply reasoning in our meditation, what enables us to sort of progress is a recognition that it's a result of our own positive actions that we do progress, and by refraining from the negative ones that we progress. And it's the more we recognize that, the more empowered we are we develop our aspiration grows as we see that we have the tools, we have the potential to attain the goal. So again, this is, we're sitting here talking about this, but it's not really a subject of conversation. This is something that we have to sit and use the reasoning that Tony mentioned and come to the conclusion that we have the power to actually succeed and develop, and that in itself will give us the joyous effort that will instill in us a feeling of enthusiasm for our virtuous practice. That's, it sounds, this is the sort of meat and potatoes of this exercise. It's not a reading exercise. It's one of really working on ourselves to come to see this, to acknowledge it, to develop conviction in it, and to, when you meditate, you do the analytical meditation that leads you to this conviction, and then you just place your mind on that, and you let that, you sort of focus on it, sort of the conviction. You keep your mind on that feeling of conviction. You are convinced, and that conviction itself is what the placement meditation is done in respect to or on.
That's how those two work together, analytical and placement. Both necessary, essential.
Both necessary. I mean, we can concentrate more on the analytical, but when we're doing this to really develop our perseverance, it is having accomplished having brought ourselves to recognize the logic behind, the validity in this line of reasoning. You then hold yourself on that thought. And then when your mind starts to sort of become fuzzy again, you apply the analytical and bring up that feeling of conviction again and keep your mind on it. So you go back and forth.
Just one thing about the analytical of generating the mind to help all sentient beings for all times to come, that just feels so not based in logic for me, that it would seem hard for me to, I mean, I guess when you think about renunciation in your own experience, or is it just that it's in this text, I just haven't studied it enough, the actual analytical correlates to develop that aspiration? Because if I sit there thinking,
But what we really have to work at is, it's not that we are leaping to this point of becoming a Buddha. We are developing our determination to become a Buddha.
The willingness, the determination.
Yeah, that's, bodhicitta is recognizing the opportunity that we have as human beings and the benefits of it, and this sort of determination, and recognizing that each and every fly and mosquito can become a Buddha, but their abilities are not really great. I'm a human being. I can work on this. I can use reasoning to actually see not only that I have a certain responsibility towards all these others who have helped me over countless past lives, but I have the potential to actually achieve this. And then you work on it. You can't think, oh, it's going to take so long and such a big... No, you say, I actually have the ability to do it. In me is that potential. I have Buddha nature. I have the malleability. I have the ability to evolve to that point.
Very good. The truth.
And on that note, I'm going to have a little sip of
An espresso? In order to increase my enthusiasm, verse 32, I should strive to abandon its opposing forces, to amass the supports of aspirations of enjoying rest, practice in earnest to become strong in self-control. I shall have to overcome, verse 33, the boundless faults of myself and others. And in order to destroy each of these faults alone, I may have to strive until an ocean of eons is exhausted. What time is it? Yet if within myself I do not perceive even a fraction of the perseverance required to exhaust these faults, then why do I not have a heart attack? For I have become an abode for infinite misery. Somewhat like the question, it's overwhelming, it's staggering.
That's good.
Yeah. Likewise, 35, I shall have to realize many excellent qualities for myself and others. And in order to attain each of these qualities alone, I may have to acquaint myself with its cause, until an ocean of eons is exhausted. Again, like waiting for the bus in the cold.
And that there's a path that works to get you to that.
Well, it's just saying it is. Now he's presenting all that just to wait. Then in verse 36, and it's even more valuable. However, I have never developed acquaintance with even a fraction of these excellencies. How do they know? How strange it is to squander this birth they have found by some coincidence. I have not made offerings to the Buddhas, the Lord Buddhas. I have not given pleasure of great festivals. I have not performed actions for the teachings. I have not fulfilled the wishes of the poor. I have not granted fearlessness to the frightened, 38. And I have not given happiness to the weak. All I have given rise to is the agonies in the mother's womb and to suffering. A summation of your life. But I think the way that he's presenting it, it's sort of to wake up. I don't know how to do it. It's sort of tough. That's tough talk. It's like drill sergeants, give me a thing. Here,
But this is what you're meant to sit and think about.
Thank you. Yes. Exactly. It's real. So we haven't done these things, and our poor mother suffered bringing us into the world. Both now and in previous lives, 39, such deprivation has arisen because of my lack of aspiring for the Dharma. Who would ever reject this aspiring for the Dharma? The aspiration for the Dharma, is the answer to turning this whole thing around, according to this text. So, the Mighty One himself has said that aspiration is the root of every facet of virtue. Its root is constant acquaintance with the ripening effects of actions. That's a tough one. That's hard to understand. Could you comment on that?
The Mighty One himself has said that aspiration is the root of every facet of virtue. So every facet of virtue has as its root the force of, the force that gets you there. And this comes about by constant acquaintance with the ripening effects of actions. Somewhere I wrote about this. Yes. The Buddha has said, aspiration is the root of all aspects of virtue. Its root is constant acquaintance with karma's effects. So all aspects of virtue come about due to aspiring. We don't attain virtues unless we aspire to attain them. We have to see that they're attainable and then wish to attain them and then work towards it. If we don't have that wish to attain them, we're not going to attain them. And the root of that is to contemplate cause and effect, is to contemplate the laws of karma. When we contemplate the laws of karma, when we understand now the laws of karma are that as a result of our own efforts, we can attain result.
How do you resolve this almost urgent aspiration against the concept of the emptiness of self?
Sorry?
How do you not allow your ego to get involved in your aspirations towards Buddhahood? And how do you balance that against the realization of the emptiness of self?
No, I don't get the question. I'm sorry.
But if we're realizing the emptiness of self, no self,
Yeah.
how do we then take that self and make it aspire to Buddhahood?
No. So
That's what I want. No.
Okay, so the way we attain Buddhahood is by recognizing, by realizing with a more and more subtle mind that there is no self. The potential to attain Buddhahood is there due to the fact that we do not exist inherently, that we are empty of inherent existence. So that the actual possibility of attaining Buddhahood and the method by which we do have this sort of relationship, which is the possibility is due to our being empty of inherent existence, and the method is to develop that realization of our emptiness of inherent existence. So the I who am engaged in this process is initially this ignorant, self-cherishing me who has enough sort of dissatisfaction with life that I actually come to the Tibet Center and study these things and think about them a little bit.
Thank you.
The Buddha did say.
And it couldn't work otherwise.
Sorry?
Because it was the selfishness of self. You couldn't transform yourself into a Buddha.
Non-inherence is not the same as non-existence.
Thank you. Yeah, they're legitimate.
So, and membership in the Tibet Center is very helpful.
Yes. Right, it's like, the Buddha's the physician, the Sangha's the nurse. Membership in the Tibet is your healthcare plan.
Every penny of your membership is a virtuous karma.
Very good.
I've done my duty, Tony.
I do.
After 50 years, we're having a membership drive.
Well, that's what we have to do. So,
I think we just.
I just want to ask another question.
Please.
Arhats, right? Arhats, they're enlightened, but they are not Buddhas, right?
Right. Yeah.
So they do attain emptiness.
Yes.
So they have attained, when Rinpoche was teaching the other day, he kept talking about attaining freedom from our afflictions and freedom from a predisposition towards our afflictions, or what are they called?
Imprints.
Sorry? The imprints. But it's
Obstacles to ambition.
Omniscience.
yeah, and when you remove the afflictions, then you become an arhat. When you remove the obstacles to omniscience, you become a Buddha.
Are arhats the same as solitary realizers? Sorry.
Solitary realizing subsets of the general term. Anyone who's out of samsara is an arhat, full destroyer. Then, out of samsara doesn't mean you're full Buddha. Bodhisattva arhats at the 8th stage. I think when they become arhats, 8th stage Bodhisattva. Anyway, so just to lighten things up, verse 41 says physical pain, mental unhappiness, all the various kinds of fear, yes, as well as separation from what is desired, all arise from an unwholesome way of life. Again, as Mickey's been saying, cause and effect. However, 42, by committing wholesome actions, which are motivated by aspiration in the mind, wherever I go, I shall be presented with tokens of the fruit of that merit. Wholesome actions, wholesome results, nice results. 43, yet by committing negative actions, although I may wish for happiness, wherever I go, I shall be completely overcome by weapons of pain caused by my wrongful life. And then he gets a little more descriptive. As a result of virtue, I shall dwell in the spacious, fragrant, and cool heart of a lotus flower, speaking mainly about Pure Land birth. My radiance will be nourished by the food of the conqueror's sweet speech. My glorious form will spring from a lotus, unfolded by the mighty one's light, and as a bodhisattva, I shall abide in the presence of the conquerors. Now the other side of that is, however, as a result of non-virtue, my skin will be ripped off by the henchmen of Yama. In this feeble state, liquid copper melted by tremendous heat will be poured into my body. Pierced by flaming swords and daggers, my flesh will be cut into 100 pieces, and I shall tumble upon the fiercely blazing iron ground. Positive and negative results. Therefore, conclusion, I should aspire for virtue and with great respect acquaint myself with it, having undertaken the wholesome in the matter of Vajra, I don't know who that is. I should then proceed to acquaint myself with self-confidence, which is another topic. But again, you may want to have happiness, but if you don't create the cause, one of the lines here is, you're not getting it. So you want it, create the causes. Create all actions, produce a result. It's up to us, I guess. So who's Vajravajra? Do you know anything? The note doesn't say anything. I couldn't find it in the Avaramsaka Sutra. It's just saying what bodhisattvas do. For example, when the sun shines forth, illuminates any suitable place without being turned back by such obstacles as blindness in people, even mountain or uneven mountain formations. Likewise, when bodhisattvas shine forth for the sake of others, he or she ripens and liberates any suitable disciple and is not turned back by the various obstacles present in sentient beings. They just radiate, and they're not hampered by any obstacles. So, but it doesn't say who this guy Vajra was.
It says on 184, the name
Note
of the Bodhisattva
184.
mentioned in the Avatamsaka Sutra.
Yeah, and that's it. Doesn't
That's
say.
all it says.
So I have to look up that sutra, the Avatamsaka.
It's a big one.
It's a big. Isn't that the one that's the criteria for what's definitive and what's provisional? And then this, is that the sutra they? Oh, Akshamani. Akshamani is the old brain. 75-year-old. So Therefore, I should aspire for virtue. No kidding. And with great respect, acquaint myself. So that's, I'm just repeating that. I should then proceed to acquaint myself with self-confidence. Can you talk about what self-confidence is, Nikki, versus pride?
Well, I think we should think of self-confidence as sort of a quality of this enthusiasm, a quality of this perseverance, this joyous effort. Self-confidence is a positive spirit of, once you have recognized that you can attain your goal, once you have proven that, once you see that this is the goal to aspire to, and this is the method to get there, I have the ability to do so, I then engage in that with self-confidence. All of the reasoning that has led to that engagement induces that self-confidence.
It's induced with good basic reason, good causes. Now,
It's more so your conviction in the efficacy of the path. If you pursue the path, it's possible.
I think His Holiness has said that when you work for others, it's a natural thing that arises.
When you say natural,
yes.
what do you mean?
Through these actions motivated through some form, some facsimile of bodhicitta, then that is sort of in accord with how things are, and then I think it produces this confidence.
His Holiness's definition of self-confidence, page 83, flash of lightning in the dark of night. Self-confidence is knowing that one has the ability to do something properly and being determined not to give up. So two aspects. You know, you're not giving up. So that's according to His Holiness. So now 47. First of all, I should examine well what is to be done, to see whether I can pursue it or cannot undertake it. If I am unable, it's best to leave it, but once I have started, I must not withdraw, and that's a big point. It's not good to start something, because the habit of retreating weakens the mind and erodes the will, according to Panjika. You start something and you stop, and then it diminishes zeal for meritorious conduct, consequently lures one into unwholesome action, which increases suffering. One can neither complete the job at hand, nor undertake fresh leaps in other direction. So it's not good to start and then stop. So how do you avoid that? As he said, first line, examine well what is to be done. Scope it out. I think we do this. When you purchase a camera, for instance, everything revolves around cameras. So if I do this, then this habit will continue in other lives. And wrongdoing and misery will increase. In other words, if I give up all the time, you're setting up, propensity again. Also, other actions done at the time of its fruition will be weak and will not be accomplished. This is something very interesting psychology.
No, this I love. There's another translation of it in Parmananda. I'm not sure I'm getting the name of the other version of this.
The Panjika.
Yeah, the Panjika.
Yeah, that's what I just read from his
Yeah.
comment, not the way he translated.
And that one I like better, and I even say it every day.
You mean the verses itself that he says?
Yeah, these two verses, because it'll go, first I must...
I think it's Padmakara she's referring
Yeah,
to.
Padmakara.
Padmakara group.
It's
Oh, the
Padmakara.
Padmakara group, their translation.
That's right, their translation.
Yeah, okay.
Because it goes, first I must consider my reserves, to start or not to start accordingly. It might be better if I do not start, but if I do, then I must continue. For if I don't, then the pattern will be established in later lives, and I will attain more sin and pain. And else, yeah, I like that. And otherwise, then all actions will be limited or will only bear meager fruit.
Exactly.
So I like to say that at the beginning of my meditation to sort of guide me in how much realistically I should proceed to do or not to.
That is the question.
That is always the question. Yeah.
And I like the idea of a pattern. That I can understand.
That I
It's a
like
good
very
word,
much,
yeah.
yeah.
Self-confidence 49 should be applied to wholesome actions. The overcoming of disturbing conceptions and my ability to do this. Thinking, I alone shall do it, is the self-confidence of action. So powerless, their minds disturbed, people in this world are unable to benefit themselves. Therefore, I shall do it for them, since unlike me, these beings are incapable. So that's a real Bodhisattva talking. Confidence in his or her ability. So, I alone. It's not showing off. There's another. Even if others are doing inferior tasks, doing nothing. I do not do those tasks because of self-importance. It would be best for me to have no such pride. That's hard to understand, so I have that commentary. One who undertakes, this is the Panjikas, and Nikki, do you want? Panjikas has to say, one who undertakes bodhisattva vows must function as other servants, or dasas. He or she should not despise others for doing menial work, nor hesitate to do that work him or herself. In fact, as a practitioner of bodhicitta vows, one should not let others do the inferior work, but should do it oneself for them. If one's ego stands in the way, it will only harm one's practice and one's self-confidence will be damaged. Conversely, one's mana, I don't know what mana is, and I couldn't get this, he uses the Sanskrit word, will increase if one understands.
Mana is a Jewish term.
I know, will increase if one undertakes to perform the meanest job. Your merit will increase if you undertake the meanest or the most lowest jobs for others. You make yourself the servant of others. So, our teacher is very good at being humble that way. It's one of the mark of. We would never know who he is, the way he acts. His humility is just staggering. The more you think of it. So, tough verse. When crows encounter a dying snake, this is easy. They will act as though they were eagles. Likewise, if my self-confidence is weak, I will be injured by the slightest downfall. So, if a person lacks self-confidence, weak of will, they will invite on themselves all the kinds of failings. All the kleshas will have a ball with you. Like you're a dead snake, even the weak. So, like crows attacking a dead snake. So, if you don't have that strength, you're letting yourself be a victim of the kleshas, the afflictions, or whatever. So let's see. How can those 53? Are we ready for another verse? 53. How can those who out of faint-heartedness have given up trying to find liberation because of this deficiency, and even the greatest obstacle, find it hard to overcome one with a firm mind? Weak mind, you can't do anything. Firm mind, you can't be overcome. So this chapter's koyach. It's strength.
It is.
Strength.
It's amazing.
Therefore, with a steady mind, verse 54, I shall overcome all faults. For if I am defeated by a fall, my wish to vanquish the three realms will become a joke. Again, we made the big statement in the Bodhisattva, well, we're going to do this, all sorts of beings, and that's right. And now, you have to do it. Otherwise, it's a joke. I will conquer everything, 55, and nothing at all shall conquer me. I, a child of the lion-like conqueror, should remain self-confident in this way. In those days, they used the term, the lion, as a metaphor for like fearlessness, I guess. So, child of, like, even the lion's cub walks around with a swagger, because it has some of the attributes of the parents, the king of the jungle, whatever you want to put it. So we should be that way.
But here, I, a child of a
lion-like conqueror.
Means a bodhisattva.
Bodhisattva, yes. So we realize what our lineage is. And nothing shall conquer me. Whoever has self 56, now again, that whole thing, between pride and self-confidence. Whoever has self-importance is destroyed by it, is disturbed and has no self-confidence. For those with self-confidence do not succumb to the power of the enemy, whereas the former are under the sway of the enemy of self-importance. Enemy also afflictions or whatever, what would you say? You have the Padmakara thing with you with it? How they-
No, I didn't bring
how
it.
they-
I'll bring it next time.
See how they voice
Yeah.
that. you know.
I think that's what I have.
You have the
I think so. What verse?
56 in chapter 7. Whoever has self-importance is destroyed.
Those whom arrogance destroys are thus defiled. They lack self-confidence. Those who have true confidence escape the foe, while others fall into the power of an evil pride.
Yeah, enemy self-importance. It's somewhat. Thank you, Charlie.
No more poetic.
Okay. It's amazing. Santideva recited this, and it was metered.
Yeah.
and everything. I mean, you got a lot of work to do.
Just a little road to travel.
Why can't we take a rest? Inflated by the disturbing conception of my self-importance, I shall be led by it to the lower realms. It destroys the joyous festival of being human. I shall become a slave eating the food of others. Stupid, ugly, feeble, and everywhere disrespected, tough people bloated by conceit are also counted among the self-important. Tell me, what is more pathetic than this?
I don't know who.
Who? We know who that is.
There's some sort of,
I'm
if
the
these
only
you
one
call
who
the
can
crowd,
fix
then
it.
tell me who are the wretched.
Who are the red? Tell me, who are the red? Yeah.
No, don't think about this as being Trump.
You know, it's me.
Think about this as being
me.
moi.
I'm leaving. I can't deal with this emotion.
That thing in us that he's just personifying, we all have that. And you look in your mind and be frightened. Goes on.
Yeah, don't
At least
look at
mine,
it on
huh?
others, really.
My mind did it.
Gotcha.
It's tough,
Yeah.
but has to be done.
That's the hard part of meditation.
Yes. Yes. Sometimes you crawl. Yeah.
I had a friend who was dying of lung cancer, and she said she tried meditation, but she just couldn't do it because every time she just sat down and tried to meditate, she just cried. It's not a bad thing. As someone who is traveling the world to find a cure, all she had to do was sit down.
Not blessed with what was we are, but having contact with this information.
It was raining tonight. Everyone who's come here braved the rain in order to think about these things. That's something to rejoice in. So that kind of virtue, even that thought, we contribute to the task of attaining Buddhahood. And it's those little contributions that lead us there. So don't despair.
Those are positive actions.
And we dedicate them to kind of reinforce that? Is that the value of dedication?
And I can even, as Tony said, I can even rejoice in the fact that you are dedicating them, and then I get 50% of yours.
You're increasing the Whoever seizes self-confidence in order to conquer the enemy of self-importance, they are the self-confident ones, the victorious heroes. And in addition, whoever definitely conquers the spread of this enemy's self-importance completely wins the fruit of a conqueror, fulfilling the wishes of the world, which a Buddha does. So, if I find myself, verse 60, amidst the crowd of disturbing conceptions, I shall endure them in 1,000 ways. Like a lion among foxes, I will not be affected by this disturbing host. So we won't be affected by these conception. We see through them.
So these disturbing conceptions, which we are in a crowd of, this is where we really think about how our afflictions are thoughts that sort of initially or on the surface suggest that they will make us happy. They're really very skillful. The thought of going and having an ice cream, the thought of going and having a really good espresso, the thought, all of those things, those are our afflictions that are just, they're sort of coming close to us and they're enticing us. And so those are the little foxes that we are among. And we have to, as Rinpoche often says, we have to really see our enemies are not the people who are, who do bad things to us and who challenge us in all sorts of ways. Our enemies are these feelings within us that just really woo us away from our convictions or our commitments to, let's say, working towards helping others. They're really subtle and they're really effective.
The internal landscape. Just as men will guard their eyes when great danger and turmoil occur, likewise I shall never be swayed by the disturbances within my mind, even at times of great strife. It would be better for me to be burned, to have my head cut off and to be killed, rather than ever bowing down to those ever-present disturbing conceptions. So likewise in all situations I should do nothing other than what is fit. There's a note attached to that. So, the fact burned, why is it better to be, this is only this life. Anything that happens to your body is temporal to this life. But these disturbing conceptions never go away. They travel with the mind to life after life after life. That's the problem. Yeah. So now's the time to get rid of them. If we can, it's best. But that's why physical harm has a limit. Body goes, that's it. But mental harm, on.
So your end.
And you have to bring all this other negative karma, which is going to ripen. And
So, all right, the note just says that these lines occur in some texts, but not others. So, that's all that's said. Just like those who yearn for the fruits of play, bodhisattvas are attracted to whatever task they may do. They never have enough, it brings them joy. This is like children playing. Right? Remember, says children play just for the sake of play. So they're not interested in, getting a reward at the end or anything. They just like to play. So, here's a nice comment. Small children delight in their games, and they do not expect any reward for what they do, whether now or in the life to come. This is the Enigma commentary. They want only the simple joy of play, and they never have enough of it. This is exactly how bodhisattvas should be in whatever they do for the sake of others. They ought not to expect any reward for what they do. They should never be satisfied, but take the most intense pleasure and exhilaration from what they do. The work itself is the reward. In normal life, you work, you might get a reward, you might not. Who knows? But if the work itself is a reward, you win. You're happy doing what you're doing. So. Although people work to be, that's what the next verse is. Although people work, verse 64. Although people work in order to be happy, it is uncertain whether or not they'll find it. But how can those whose work itself is joy find happiness unless they do it? Well, Nicky's with his camera. He's not worried about it. It's just the joy of doing it, right? So the Bodhisattva whom work is of joy will always be busy with karma or action. Inaction will not touch him, or they're always busy doing something, at least mentally. So I guess that's what we should do. If I feel that I never have enough sensual objects, 65, which are like honey smeared on a razor's edge, then why should I ever feel that I have enough merit, which ripens into happiness and peace? Material, what's really valuable and what's not? What's sense input and what's general well-being of the mind? Take your pick.
What's very fleeting and what's not.
And what's fleeting? Honey smeared on a razor.
Not just fleeting, the pursuit of which cultivates more afflictions.
So in other words, it's those, it's almost like the self-comforting we have of treating ourselves with ice cream or espresso as opposed to somehow changing our minds such that our pleasure is coming from spinach.
Now, let me just say, there is nothing wrong with espresso. There's nothing wrong
Brought to you by the
with
Espresso Council.
ice cream.
But
There's
self-comforting.
nothing wrong with cameras.
What about
Those are
chocolate?
neutral. Those are
Nothing
neutral.
wrong with chocolate. The problem lies in ourselves. It's our attachment to them. There's no problem with chocolate.
You heard it.
The espresso has to be very tight, though. If it's not tight, then there is a problem. It has to be-
Yes. You and I care for the caffeine to hell without trying this, but
But when we're working on this, might it be good to forego an espresso now and then?
no.
Well, let's flip that and say, let's turn that around and say, in order to really generate good, solid perseverance, a little espresso every once in a while might help.
I'm bowing down.
If our motivation in having that espresso is to be able to more effectively engage in virtue,
But
total motivation.
But
Yes.
espresso here is the example. But if for lifetimes we've been attached to espresso,
Now we're talking about
Attachment is
attachment.
different.
That's something
That's what he
different.
said. That's where the obstacle becomes.
that's what I mean. I'm saying, given that attachment, might it be good to sometimes avoid those
Not
objects?
sometimes. Totally.
All
But
attachment.
no,
Give it up.
All
No, you
attachment.
said there's no problem with.
No. you didn't.
Espresso.
I'm talking about
Problem is
in our
attachment.
practice, if we're working with this.
If you have a problem with espresso, I would recommend that you diminish your
That's
attachment to espresso.
okay.
But recognize that there's nothing wrong with espresso.
If you're like
Recognize it.
studying and you're getting a little tired and you drink a little espresso, have a little chocolate or...
We're not talking about espresso
I
here.
want to talk about, for instance,
You know, Gavin
Rinpoche got
wants
his
to give you a
house.
Talking about ice cream.
Remember when Rinpoche got his house?
Potato chips.
He gave me a big lecture. I said,
Remember
"It's a very nice
Yeah.
house." He says, yes. If I'm attached to the house, it's no good. But if I'm using the house, all the attributes of it nicely, that's fine. But if I'm attached, no, it's no good. The whole thing was attachment. We have a nice shrine, beautiful art, this and that. But if you're attached to it and you're clinging to it, giving it a value it doesn't have, you're in trouble.
I'm talking about the process of letting go of that attachment and what it entails.
Giving it up.
Wouldn't actually engaging,
So, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
As a step towards diminishing our attachment, it is good to, we have to work, if we recognize the way in which our attachment to something leads to suffering, that in itself will help us refrain from engaging in that attachment. Now, with something like coffee, it helps that coffee itself is not good for us. And so if we can add to that the fact that the object of our attachment harms our health, causes us to shake and things like that, all of that helps. But the problem is still not coffee, the problem is the attachment.
And if we give it up, not having fully reflected on that, you might want it more.
Well, that's a good.
Or then you're still attached to it, you're
The
just
right
not consuming
reasons,
it.
in other words, the right reasons for giving it up.
Yeah.
That it's, you know, it's still, it's context.
By engaging in it and then having kind of an analytical meditation while you engage in it would be better to kind of have the, you know, dispel it, maybe. Intentionally.
I think a coffee every once in a while is sort of fun.
Moderate.
Freshens the thought.
It doesn't cure, but it
It
refreshes.
refreshes. This is a very good. So I think that we're coming to the end of our time now, at this time. Fortunately,
That one.
Nikki will be with us for a while. And we have other duties. By way of dedication, we'll say two prayers. Om Svastika, fully permeated with countless sun rays of love and joy, wearing a black tie.